First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Now, today we'll be going over Daniel 11 and 3, and the history of the king that's being talked about. So, Daniel 11, verse 1. Also, I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Now, Darius the Mede in secular history is known as Astyages, which was the grandfather of Cyrus the Great on his mother's side. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. And those 3 kings started with Cambyses II, Bardia, and then Darius the Great. And the 4th shall be far richer than they all, and by strength of his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Now that 4th king was Xerxes. And a mighty king shall stand up, thou shalt rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. Now this mighty king that shall stand up is talking about Alexander the Greek, also known as Alexander the Great. And it says that he shall rule with great dominion because why? Look at how vast of an empire he had. That king was Alexander. Now, if we were to jump back a couple chapters, Daniel 7 verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So here we see that Alexander is likened unto a leopard, and it says dominion was given to it, which goes along with Daniel 11 and 3, where it says that he ruled with great dominion. Now the next chapter, in verse 5, and I was considering, behold, and the he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, and that horn between the eyes of the he-goat is Alexander. And we will be coming back to this chapter later on. Now let's read more about Alexander. Alexander III of Macedon, most commonly known as Alexander the Great, was a king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. Alright, so originally he was king of Macedon before he became king of all Greece. Now, if we were to see where he was born, here it says 20 or 21st July 356 BC in Pella, Macedon. And now we know through the scriptures that this is actually wrong. And so we were to read First Maccabees. First Maccabees chapter 1. And it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chetam, had smitten Darius the king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So, here is saying that he was born in Pella, Macedon, but the scriptures say that it was in Chetam. And we go with what the scriptures say. And let's actually search up Chetam. Because I believe Chetam is like on the east coast of Cyprus, that island. Okay. Right, so yeah, it's like east coast of the Cyprus island. Continuing reading. He succeeded his father Philip II to the throne in 336 BC at the age of 20 and spent most of his ruling years conducting a lengthy military campaign throughout Western Asia, Central Asia, parts of South Asia, and Egypt. By the age of 30, he had created one of the largest empires in history, stretching from Greece to northwestern India. Right, you see on the map, all the way from Greece over here in the west to Slovakia, northwestern India. Now, he was undefeated in battle and is widely considered to be one of history's greatest and most successful commanders. Now, why was this? Well, he was able to achieve this because the Most High put that spirit on him. Because the Most High set up Alexander. We know that the Most High, he can remove kings and he can set up kings. And we get that in Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2, verse 20. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of the Most High forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changeth the kings and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. Right, so the Most High had set up Alexander, for the sake of prophecy. Until the age of 16, Alexander was tutored by Aristotle. In 335 BC, shortly after his assumption of kingship over Macedon, he campaigned in the Balkans and reasserted control over Thrace and parts of Illyria, before marching on the city of Thebes, which was subsequently destroyed in battle. Alexander then led the League of Corinth and used his authority to launch the Pan-Hellenic project, Pan-Hellenic meaning all Greek, envisaged by his father, assuming leadership over all Greeks in their conquest of Persia. In 334 BC, he invaded the Achaemenid Persian Empire, and began a series of campaigns that lasted for 10 years following his conquest of Asia Minor. Alexander broke the power of Achaemenid Persia in a series of decisive battles, including those at Issus and Gaugamela. He subsequently overthrew Darius III and conquered the Achaemenid Empire in its entirety. Right now, we have to understand that when these kingdoms go down, it's normally after numerous of battles. It's not just overnight. And the Lord, he allowed Alexander to conquer all of this so quickly was because he needed prophecy to be fulfilled. So that's why he has set Alexander up to do these things. Okay, where were we? After the fall of Persia, the Macedonian Empire held a vast swath of territory between the Adriatic Sea and the Indus River. Right, and the Adriatic Sea is like the most northern part of the Mediterranean. And we see that. Look at this. This is all his territory here to the Indus River over here. Where were we? Okay. Alexander endeavored to reach the ends of the world and the great outer sea and invaded India in 326 BC, achieving an important victory over Porus, an ancient Indian king of present-day Punjab. At the Battle of the Hydaspes, due to the mutiny of his homesick troops, he eventually turned back at the Beas River and later died in 323 BC in Babylon, the city of Mesopotamia that he had planned to establish as his empire's capital. Alexander's death, left unexecuted, an additional series of planned military and mercantile campaigns that would have begun with a Greek invasion of Arabia. In the years following his death, a series of civil wars broke out across the Macedonian Empire, eventually leading to its disintegration at the hands of the Diadochi. Now, these Diadochi were Alexander's generals. Okay, let's read more about them. The Diadochi were the rival generals, families, and friends of Alexander the Great, who fought for control over his empire after his death in 323 BC. The wars of the Diadochi marked the beginning of the Hellenistic period from the Mediterranean Sea to the Indus River Valley. The most notable Diadochi include Ptolemy, Antigonus, Cassander, Seleucus, as the last remaining at the end of the wars of the successors ruling in Egypt, Asia Minor, Macedon, and Persia respectively, all forging dynasties lasting several centuries. Okay, so now we can get more on them, a little more on them. Life, education. Okay. When Alexander was 13, Philip, which is his father, began to search for a tutor and considered such academics as Isocrates and Speusippus, the latter offering to resign from his stewardship of the academy to take up the post. In the end, Philip chose Aristotle and provided the temple of Nymphs at Mesa as a classroom. In return for teaching Alexander, Philip agreed to rebuild Aristotle's hometown of Stagira, which Philip had razed. So he destroyed Aristotle's hometown, and to repopulate it by buying and freeing the ex-citizens who were slaves or pardoning those who were in exile. Mesa was like a boarding school for Alexander and the children of Macedon nobles such as Ptolemy, which was Ptolemy the first satyr, who was, he was one of Alexander's generals that, and he basically gained rule over Egypt. Hephaestion and Cassander. Now, Cassander was another one of those generals who eventually ended up gaining rule over Macedon. So, here we read that Ptolemy and Cassander were actually childhood friends of Alexander, and then those other two generals who were going to be Lysimachus and Seleucus. Many of these students would become his friends and future generals and are often known as the companions. Aristotle taught Alexander and his companions about medicine, philosophy, morals, religion, logic, and art. Now, because the Israelites were such a different people, because, we were the Lord's chosen people, many people knew about us. If we go to Deuteronomy chapter 2, I believe. No, chapter 7. Chapter 7, verse 6. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, thy power. The Lord, thy power, hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Right. Now we jump chapter 14, verse 2. Thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself, above all the nations that are upon the earth. Right, so, us and our manners, our customs, our values, and, everything about us, we're so conspicuous to everyone else's that even empires who ruled over us know that when it came to us that there was a difference. So when it came to teaching Alexander about the different religions and things of that nature, that we were brought up. You just know we were brought up. Under Aristotle's tutelage, Alexander developed a passion for the works of Homer, and in particular, the Iliad. Aristotle gave him an annotated copy, which Alexander later carried on his campaigns. Alexander was able to quote Euripides from memory. Okay, so Now we can get into why Alexander was specifically important to us. What did he do that affected the Israelites? You know, and that main thing was this Hellenization, because this is the part that goes on to affect us. Because Alexander, when he launched the Pan-Hellenic project, what they wanted to do was spread the Greek culture all over. And they did exactly that. Hellenization was coined by the German historian Johann Gustav Droysen to denote the spread of Greek language, culture, and population into the former Persian Empire after Alexander's conquest. Right, so this is the former Persian Empire, and Alexander took over that, and when he defeated them, he basically just assimilated the Persian Empire into the territory he had already. So through Hellenization, all of this land started becoming like Greeks. They started to speak like them, they started to follow their customs, they started to dress like them, so on and so forth. This process can be seen in such great Hellenistic cities as Alexandria, Antioch, and Seleucia, south of modern Baghdad. Alexander sought to insert Greek elements into Persian culture and to hybridize Greek and Persian culture, homogenizing the populations of Asia and Europe. So what Alexander wanted to do was unite them all and make it one. Although his successors explicitly rejected such policies. So Alexander, he wanted everything to be one unified empire, but after he died, his successors, they weren't with that. They were against that. And, we read about that in Daniel 11:4. And when he shall stand up, meaning Alexander would be at the height of his power, his kingdom shall be broken. Right, because when he died, what happened? Those civil wars. It shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, which is going into the places that his generals ruled, nor according to his dominion, skip the part, Slakia, and not to his posterity, right? Because posterity basically means like his descendants or his children. So his kingdom didn't go to his descendants, because those who got dominion over his kingdom, they weren't his children or his descendants. They were his generals. Nor according to his dominion which he ruled. Right. So Alexander, he had a certain way he wanted things to be ran, like what we previously read on the Wikipedia page. He wanted to unite and make things one. But the scriptures say, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, because his generals ruled according to what they wanted. And then that's why here it says that they rejected his policies, although his successors explicitly rejected such policies. So they didn't rule according to his dominion. Hellenization occurred throughout the region, accompanied by a distinct and opposite orientalization of the successor states. The core of the Hellenistic culture, promulgated by the conquest, was essentially Athenian. The close association of men from across Greece and Alexander's army directly led to the emergence of the largely Attic-based Koine, or Common Greek dialect. Koine spread throughout the Hellenistic world, becoming the lingua franca, or the common language of Hellenistic lands, and eventually the ancestor of modern Greek. So, Greek became the common language. It became the common language throughout this entire area. And, there were Israelites who were influenced by the Greek way through this Panhellenism. Furthermore, town planning, education, local government, and art current in the Hellenistic period were all based on classical Greek ideals, evolving into distinct new forms commonly grouped as Hellenistic. Also, the New Testament was written in a Koine Greek language. Aspects of Hellenistic culture were still evident in the traditions of the Byzantine Empire in the mid-15th century. Alright, okay, so through Hellenization, which started with Alexander and then being pushed further through the times as generals, this led to many Israelites completely leaving their own heritage. And, they even started living like Greeks. There were even Israelites who knew they were Israelites, but still decided to adopt Greek names. So through this Hellenism, it basically made the Greek or the Grecian way of life a trend. But now, even though the Israelites did this, it didn't change who they were. And they were still Israel at the end of the day. Let's get to Acts 16:1. It's lucky for all this sniffling. And then came he to Derbe and Lystra. And behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman, which was a Jewess and believed, but his father was a Greek. Now, I say he came to Derbe and Lystra. Let me search that up real quick. Okay, here we see that Derbe and Lystra is actually north of the island Cyprus that we read in the scriptures Alexander was actually born on. We're going back. Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman, which was a Jewess, and believed, but his father was a Greek. Now it says, but his father was a Greek. This doesn't mean that his father was a literal blood-born Greek. If we were to look into Greek, Helen, a Greek either by nationality, whether a native of the mainland or of the Greek islands or colonies. In a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, that made the language, customs, and learning of the Greeks their own. The primary reference is to a difference of religion and worship. Now, these people made the language, customs, and learning of the Greeks their own because of what? This was what was pushed during the Hellenistic period. And it specifically says not Jews because it's excluding the Israelites that were in Judea. Because they were known to have opposed this. So dealing with Timotheus' father, he was actually one of these Israelites who embraced the Greek way of life, and these were the effects of Hellenization. Now, I'll stand in this chapter 16:1 in Acts 16 verse 1. In those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. Now, were these Grecians actually Greeks? Well, let's look into the word Grecians. Hellenistes. A Hellenist, one who imitates the manners and customs or the worship of the Greeks and used the Greek tongue. Used in the New Testament of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. Right, so once again, these things happen because of Hellenization. So now, moving on from the Wikipedia page, we jump to the book of Josephus. And here in the book of Josephus, we're going to read about Alexander's encounter with Israel, when he came over there. We actually see on the map. We see where Jerusalem is. We see where he started conquering. Boom. So he actually conquered the area here. Then he left and he actually came back. So, since he conquered the area over here, we know he ran into the Israelites. So now we're going to read about that encounter he had with them. Okay. Now Alexander, when he had taken Gaza, made haste to go up to Jerusalem, right? Because Gaza is like a strip right here. I can't really zoom in much more, but it's like a Gaza strip right there. Now Alexander, when he had taken Gaza, made haste to go up to Jerusalem. And Jadis the high priest, when he heard that, was in agony and under terror, as not knowing how he should meet the Macedonians, since the king was displeased at his foregoing disobedience. Now, what did it mean foregoing disobedience? Well, because when Alexander first came to them, he was basically telling them that they might as well submit to him now, because he would become the next king. But the Israelites had refused. Why? Because they had already pledged their loyalties to the Persians. So now Alexander goes and starts to conquer all these areas, and now he's on his way back. So now they're in fear of that because, for example, let's say I ask you to be on my team, right? And you tell me no because you're already on someone else's team. So when I go and defeat that someone else that you allied yourself with, what do you think I'm going to do when I come back to you? I'm going to make you wish, I'm going to make you wish that you joined me when I asked you to. You're going to regret not joining me when I asked you to. So, and that's what they feared. He therefore ordained that the people should make supplications and should join with him in ordaining sacrifice to the Most High, whom he besought to protect that nation, and to deliver them from the perils that were coming upon them. Whereupon the Most High warned him in a dream. Whereupon the Most High warned him in a dream, which came upon him after he had offered sacrifice, that he should take courage and adorn the city and open the gates, that the rest should appear in white garments, but that he and the priests should meet the king in the habits proper to their order, without the dread of any ill consequences which the providence of the Most High would prevent. Right, so they're in fear of what they think Alexander's about to come do to them. But, the Lord, he comes to the high priest in a dream and basically gives him instructions on what to do and to basically calm him down and let him know that, he's not going to allow anything to happen, or anything bad to happen at least. Upon which, when he rose from his sleep, he greatly rejoiced and declared to all the warning he had received from the Most High, according to which dream he had acted entirely, and so waited for the coming of the king. And when Jadis understood that Alexander was not far from the city, he went out in procession with the priest and the multitude of the citizens. The procession was venerable, and the manner of it different from that of other nations. It reached to a place called Sapha, which name translated into Greek signifies a prospect for you have thence a Greek signifies a prospect, for you have thence a prospect both of Jerusalem and of the temple. And when the Phoenicians and the Samaritans that followed him thought they should have liberty to plunder the city and torment the high priest to death. Now, why was this? Well, we have to remember that these Phoenicians and Samaritans were the heathens who were brought into the land when the northern kingdom was taken out during that besieged, by Assyria, which we read about in 2 Kings chapter 17. So these heathens, they're thinking, okay, yeah, we're about to come help Alexander destroy Jerusalem. They were eager, they were down, like they were all with it. Which the king's displeasure fairly promised them the very reverse of it happened, right? So because Alexander was mad, he basically promised them that they would come to raise Jerusalem. But the Lord had it to where, the reverse or the opposite happened. For Alexander, when he saw the multitude at a distance in white garments, while the priest stood clothed with fine linen, and the high priest in purple and scarlet clothing, with his mitre on his head, having the golden plate whereon the name of the Most High was engraved, he approached by himself and adored that name, and first saluted the high priest. Now, because Alexander adored the Lord's name, this does not mean that he was an Israelite. He was still a heathen. The Jews also did all together with one voice salute Alexander and encompass him about, whereupon the kings of Syria and the rest were surprised at what Alexander had done and supposed him disordered in his mind. Right, so the kings and the rest of the people, they were baffled by this, because they were basically like, you just came over here and conquered all of these lands, and etc. But then you come and show respect to these Jews. You come and honor these Jews. They thought something was wrong in his mind. Like, is he good up there? However, Parmenion alone went up to him and asked him how it came to pass that when all others adored him, he should adore the high priest of the Jews. To whom he replied, I did not adore him, but that God who has honored him with his high priesthood. So Alexander, he had made reverence to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. But why? Well, continue reading, we'll find out. For I saw that this very person in a dream, in this very habit, when I was at Dion in Macedonia, who, when I was considering with myself how I might obtain the dominion of Asia, exhorted me to make no delay, but boldly to pass over the sea thither, for that he would conduct my army and would give me the dominion over the Persians. Right, so Alexander, he had a dream of the high priest and a priest, and in that dream, he was told that the power to defeat the Persians would be given to him. Now this just shows how the Most High manipulates everything. He's the master manipulator. He has control over everything. Because the Most High, he came to Alexander in a dream and showed him the priest dressed in white. Then the Most High came to the priest, and he told him, dress in white. So that when Alexander sees this, when he comes, he's going to show favor to you instead of anger. He just constructed and manipulated that entire situation. Right, so whence it is that, having seen no other in that habit, and now seeing this person in it, and remembering that vision and the exhortation which I had in my dream, I believe that I bring this army under divine conduct. So, he had peep game, he knew. And shall therewith conquer Darius and destroy the power of the Persians, and that all things will succeed according to what is in my own mind. Right, so, the priest, him seeing the priest as he did in his dream was validation to him that, his dream was real and that it was true and that he would conquer the Persians and become the king of all Greece. Why? Because, that's what the Lord wanted. It was prophecy. And when he had said this to Parmenion, and had given the high priest his right hand, the priest ran along by him, and he came into the city. And when he went up into the temple, he offered sacrifice to the Most High according to the high priest's directions, and magnificently treated both the high priest and the priest. And when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was the person intended. And as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present. Right, and this actually shows that Alexander knew Hebrew, because how else would he have read it? So now, let's go to Daniel, or go back to Daniel, should I say, because remember, I told you we would be heading back. Daniel chapter 8, verse 1. Vision of the ram and goat. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. Now, Daniel he received this vision during the reign of King Belshazzar. So, he got this vision hundreds of years before Alexander. Verse 2, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Now this ram that had 2 horns, this represents the Medes and the Persians, or that Medo-Persian Empire. And the horn that was higher, which came up last, was the Persians. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth. Now this he-goat is the Greek Empire, and we look on the map, you see Greek here is in the west. Alright, and touched not the ground. Now this is going into how fast and swift and quick that the Greeks conquered these lands. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Remember earlier, this notable horn between the eyes of the goat is actually Alexander. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. Now remember, this ram being the Medo-Persian Empire. So, the Greeks, they came to fight the Persians. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram and brake his 2 horns. Which means what? That the Greeks would succeed over the Persians. Because remember, this was a vision. This hasn't happened yet. This is what was going to happen. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. So, this is what they showed Alexander. Now, if we jump down, we see that the angels, they actually break down the vision to Daniel, and he writes it down. The ram's identity. The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Alright, so that was all they needed to show Alexander. And then, what does it say? He supposed that himself was the person intended. Why? Because verse 21, it says that the horn that is between the eyes is the first king, and Alexander was the first king of all of Greece. He was the first king of the Greek Empire. Okay, continuing. But the next day he called them to him and bid them ask what favors they pleased of him. So, what do y'all want from me? Whatever y'all want, I got it. Whereupon the high priest desired that they might enjoy the laws of their forefathers and might pay no tribute on the 7th year. He granted all they desired, and when they asked him that he would permit the Jews in Babylon and Media to enjoy their own laws also, he willingly promised to do hereafter that they desired. Now, you might be asking, why were there Jews in Babylon and Media? Where there were Jews in Babylon and Media because when the Babylonians took over Jerusalem, they took Israelite captives to Babylon. And we read that in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 20, verse 4. Chapter 20, verse 4. For thus thus saith the Lord, behold, I will make thee a terror to thyself and to all thy friends, and they shall fall by the sword of their enemies, and thine eyes shall behold it. And I will give all Judah into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall carry them captive into Babylon, and shall slay them with the sword. Right, now fast forward, you had some Jews who stayed and then some who came back. But being that they were, in those lands, there were things that they couldn't freely do. So, they're basically asking Alexander, since you're gonna have dominion over these lands, it's in your power to allow us to keep our laws, even though we're in those lands. That's what they asked of him. And when he said to the multitude that if any of them would enlist themselves in his army on this condition that they should continue under the laws of their forefathers and live according to them, he was willing to take them with him. Many were ready to accompany him in his wars. Alright, Salakia, I had to stop recording, but picking up where we left off. So when Alexander had thus settled matters at Jerusalem, he led his army into the neighboring cities, and when all the inhabitants to whom he came received him with great kindness, the Samaritans who had then Shechem for their metropolis, a city situate at Mount Gerizim, and inhabited by apostates of the Jewish nation, seeing that Alexander had so greatly honored the Jews, determined to profess themselves Jews. Accordingly, they made their address to the king with splendor and showed great alacrity. So, they were eager to meet the king. They were just really eager to meet the king because they're thinking that they're going to be able to get something too. And showed great alacrity in meeting him at a little distance from Jerusalem. And when Alexander had commanded them, the Shechemites approached him, taking with them the troops that Sanballat had sent him. And they desired that he would come to their city and do honor to their temple also. Now it says to their temple also because they had also built a temple. Because remember, these were the heathens who were brought into our land, who had to be taught how to deal and worship the Lord in the land, so that he would stop killing them with those lions that he was sending to them because they were defiling the land. And, over time, as they were doing that, worshiping, they started to think as if they were us, the Israelites, or the Lord's people. And that they actually worshipped our power, but they didn't. But doing that, they felt as if they were also entitled to something as well. To whom he promised that when he returned, he would come to them. And when they petitioned that he would remit the tribute of the 7th year to them, because they did but so thereon, he asked who they were that made such a petition. Right? So, who are y'all to be asking me this? It was like, for who I know who the Jews are, but who are y'all to be asking something of this for me? And when they said that they were Hebrews, but had the name of Sidonians living at Shechem, he asked them again whether they were Jews. And when they said they were not Jews, right, because just because you're Hebrew, that does not necessarily mean you're a Jew. You could be a Hebrew Edomite, for example. It was to the Jews, said he, that I granted that privilege. However, when I return and I am thoroughly informed by you of this matter, I will do what I shall think proper. Right, so this privilege, this was a Jew exclusive. This was only, I'm only doing this for the Jews. No, this is not something, that's for every other nation. No, this is only for the Jews. And in this manner, he took leave of the Shechemites, but ordered that the troops of Sanballat will follow him into Egypt, because there he designed to give them lands, which he did a little after in Thesis, when he ordered them to guard that country. Right, so this is going into like when he allowed us to stay in Alexandria, Egypt. But yeah, so back to Daniel 11, verse 3. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. Now this mighty king was Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Greek. And with that being said, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai.